All right, writers, it is another episode of Get Them Words In, and today we are going to be talking about the kind of age-old debate for writers. Are you a plotter or are you a pantser? I don't like the debate, mainly because being a guy who has to plot, I don't understand how people can pants. I don't understand how people can take like one like singular idea that's like a sentence long and draw it out into 50 to 100,000 words with no kind of framework to kind of help them do it, no kind of roadmap on how to do it. And because my brain doesn't work that way, I kind of like hold back and reserve judgment of people who can do that. There are great writers who do that. Stephen King talks about, not plotting because you need to have real people. But for me, I think that's part of plotting, that you have to have your characters well defined, that you have to have their settings well defined so that you can see how they would interact, all that kind of stuff. But for the other side of the coin, for us plotters, it really is one of the foundational things. And as a struggling writer, as a writer who's now pursuing this full time, who's going to want to try and get to that point, you have to come to terms with the fact that it's an essential first step, and possibly an essential first step ahead of most of your word count days. You have to have not only your book plotted, but the books that are going to follow if you're going to have a trilogy plotted. This is one of the reasons I think you see certain writers come out with a book and they have to market it because it's a single piece of fiction, and they're a lot easier to sell traditionally published books, what have you. Single books are a lot easier to sell because you can pitch it as a standalone and then try to turn it into a trilogy. Now, if you have a nice kind of segue into that, it's a good way to do it. And there's also ways to like write a book where it's a standalone, but you have like a scene in your back pocket that you can add to that standalone that turns it into a trilogy, that kind of stuff. But one of the problems I'm running into right now is one of my series. I had that standalone first novel, and I even had a sequel written to that novel, but I didn't have an ending because I didn't realize how important plot was. And so now I'm trying to plot that third book so I can have a complete trilogy, so I can sell it as a product. And I can't do that right now because I don't have the plotting done. And that's kind of hit me as I'm looking at all the different kind of books I want to write. We went through this a couple, weeks ago, just all the different kind of series that I want to write as a young adult author, and even to the point where I'm looking at writing other series like adult series, thrillers, that kind of stuff. All that for a plotter means that I have to take time away from daily word count to be able to really get organized and straight. And for me, that's a process where I use like not a hard and fast like set of like rules and whatnot, but I use what are called beats. One of the best novels on like how to like write a book is Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. This is not Save the Cat. That's a screenplay book. This is Save the Cat Writes a Novel. It uses the same kind of principles. And Jessica turns it into like writing a novel. And she has 15 beats, 15 essential scenes that have to happen into a story, have to happen in order of a story that take you along what a lot of people would call the hero's journey, or what a lot of people would call a character arc. It's 15 beats that just kind of nice and roundly define what a story is, all in a row like that. Each one of those beats can be like one scene, or it can be 10 scenes. They can be like one scene that leads to, through 10 scenes to the second beat, to the third beat, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really loose framework for plotters to be able to figure that stuff out. And for me as a writer, I have to take every one of these ideas. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. I think we have 21. I think we have 21 plots that need to happen, that need to have those 15 beats done up so that, and probably all the scenes kind of, at least summarized in a sentence too, so that I can sit down every morning and write what that's going to be and not waste my time with word count. But, that takes time. For me, that's probably a month of time doing nothing but plotting, but, taking, this book. It's a young adult book that I'm going to be hopefully publishing by the end of the year. That I have about 20,000 words in, but I don't really have the beats down. I have some, but not all the scenes. and really fleshing out, okay, this is where we, started. This is where we're going to finish. What are all the scenes in the middle? What is their like shortest form summary? And then taking that information and saying, okay, what are the character descriptions that I need? What are the setting descriptions I'm going to need? What is like a big thing for me on this one is I've had to start a map. This is the notebook I've been writing all the kind of miscellany in, the series Bible, if you will. And this is the map, rough drawn, for Clearwaters, Alberta, where this novel is being taken place. And so I have like a legend where like where people's houses are, where certain landmarks are, so that it makes sense to me in my head, and so that I'm saying, when he takes like 4 left turns, that he ends up back at his house, and there are actually roads that actually make sense that way, so you don't lose track. All those details are like integral to like plot description. All those details need to be there for me to be able to describe the scenes in a way that kind of attaches emotionally to the reader. And we talked about that yesterday with the show versus tell. That you tell setting and show emotion. That telling setting, that is not as simple as just, showing up at the keyboard and saying what's on your mind, because what will happen then is you're writing things that are kind of disjointed. You're writing things that are not in the same kind of thread as the rest of the book, because they're separate ideas. And what plotting is getting those ideas down on paper so that they're uniform, so that they all work together, and so that you don't have one part pulling the story in a direction that the rest of the plot can't support. That's what my other series, which is the Legends of Pyrock, that's what that series did. I actually got to the second book and it was great, but it wouldn't have supported a third book, which is causing me to do some rewrites. So I put that on hold. I got to do some plotting with that. But if I'm going to do plotting, especially as a writer, I'm going to do plotting for my future works. I'm going to take a good chunk of time and say, like, what is next year's writing schedule going to look like? What is next year's, what am I going to try to accomplish as a writer inside the next year? Let's say from like NaNoWriMo 2023 to NaNoWriMo 2024. What am I planning on writing? I need to have those books plotted, at least the 15 beats, like from Jessica Brody, at least those 15 beats, so that I can have something kind of down. And if I don't have that, then I can't consider it a future work, because there's not enough structure there for me to put my setting and my characters into so that I can write. I need that plot to exist before I can do the writing. So that's my next project. I'm actually going to take a pause and a break from word counts for the most part. I'm still going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm still going to try and do work on specifically this book so that I can keep progress on that. But what I'm going to be doing in my spare time, aside from these videos and aside from the reading, is that I'm going to try and plot out the rest of this trilogy, at least these guys, and probably Midnight Clique. So that's 6 books. 6 books is a lot to write in a year, but these are all going to be short-ish books. Midnight Clique is going to be 50,000 words each, and the 3 in the young adult, the 3 in the young adult series are probably going to be between 60 and 80. So that's a lot of words to be able to get done, but a daily word count of about 500 to 1,000, which is what I tend to manage during the weekdays, is possible to do that. But it requires me to do this. So it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll probably finish these after these ones are done, so I can publish this first and then that afterwards. But what's key to that pressing on, especially for me, is plotting. It's not going to be like that for everybody, but consider taking time to do that. Consider taking time to compartmentalize that part of your life, and today, or like this week or this month, I'm going to spend some time and plan future works. I'm going to do the necessary and foundational work of plotting my work, so that when it comes time to writing it, I have a framework and a map to follow. That doesn't mean I'm not going to deviate off if inspiration comes and all of a sudden the characters are doing something that I didn't expect them to do while I'm writing. But it does mean that I'm going to be as prepared as possible when you start on page 1 of any one of these books. And that's a real big thing, is making sure you're prepared on page 1. Because if you get stalled, then you end up writing a series that doesn't go anywhere. I started The Legends of Pyrock back in 2014, 15. I think I published the first one 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I ended up taking it off Amazon because it was just a novella at that time. I wanted them to be full-length novels, and I wanted it to be a trilogy. So I had to rewrite it then. And I've done nothing but rewriting on this for almost 10 years. It's coming up on 10 years, and it'll probably be 10 years before I finally get to it. And it was a short amount of work. The novels are between kind of 50 and 60,000 words. A good writer should be able to polish that off in a year if they're getting their word counts in. But if you're a plotter, you need that plot in first. So I highly recommend Save the Cat Writes a Novel. Jessica Brody. Definitely get this book for dealing with like how you're going to like construct your plots and what are the major points that you need, all that kind of stuff. I would also recommend, and this is a fantastic book that is like required reading. Okay, you need to get this. Look at all the notes I took in this. Just like every other page is a note. Plot and Structure by James Scott Bell. It's part of the Write Great Fiction series. There's a bunch of these books. There's one on dialogue. I think there's like 4 in total and stuff like that. I'm going to pick them all up eventually, but Plot and Structure, this is one of my favorite books on writing craft, and it is amazing. You should definitely pick this up. You should definitely pick these up. These should both be on your bookshelf as a writer. Go get them words in.